And welcome back. Here we are with another weekend recap, and it was a very special weekend, especially for yours truly. I am back from the Penn Relays, and I just simply love that meet, and I was so happy to go back, and I cannot wait to go back in 2025. What a great weekend we had. We didn't have a bevy of number one performances, but that didn't matter. We had a lot of great competition, which I think is actually the key to having a successful outdoor regular season. How do the teams look competing against each other at this point, knowing that in a couple of weeks we're going to have the major conference championship weekend? We even had a few conference championships that competed this weekend. But the majors are going to come up in a couple of weeks. So the regular season is coming to a close. And so we're going to be dealing with the cream of the crop soon, which is an exciting point. Quite a few notable performances that we'll discuss here. And I also will have a segment where we just focus on the Penn Relays. And I will do a follow up video where I'm just recapping my Penn Relay experience. Learned a lot this time around, and it will be different next time. So I'm looking forward to an exciting 2025 Penn Relays. But let's get started with our recap. And our first leg will, of course, be the sprints and hurdles. And we'll actually have to go out to the Drake Relays for the top men's performance. And that was from Darius Luff of Nebraska. 13:25 in the 110 high hurdles. Again, I did say 13:25. He is now number one in the nation, a clear leader, because that was actually into a headwind and not in super great conditions. So that's a real positive sign. We saw him come on strong indoors in 2023. He had a pretty solid 2024 campaign. Was not able to claim the national title, but with a 13:25 outdoors, he's in prime position to be the leader because no one's run sub 13:3 yet this season. We're still waiting to see what else Caleb Dean will do. Devion Wilson I actually saw in person this weekend, and he looks solid. He almost broke Terrence Trammell's 110 Penn Relay record, and that's a phenomenal record. So he just was a bit shy. But I think Darius Luff pretty much cemented himself as possibly the front runner. We'll see what happens come Big Ten championships in that major championship weekend, but there's really not anyone in the Big Ten that's kind of hanging with him right now. The other notable men's mark came from the 4x1, and it was a team that used to be at the Penn Relays and has a lot of pinwheels themselves, and that's LSU. The LSU men's 4x1 team, 38-40. They're getting better and better each time they go out, moving that, and they have a great quartet. They are the deepest 100-meter men's squad in the country, and they've kind of been putting that on display lately. I still think that once the dust settles, Texas Tech may be the superior group because of what we saw indoors. But outdoors, we haven't really seen a whole lot from that group, and that's for obvious reasons. Some of them are preparing for in more important Olympic trials, and they are focusing on the regular season, so they won't probably appear until conference championships, and they maybe just be in prime position. But we'll when the dust settles, we'll probably see Texas Tech versus LSU, and I think Florida for because Florida had their first main group together, and they weren't too bad for their first go out, 38-7. But 38-4 is nothing to sneeze at, and I think LSU is in really prime position to possibly go sub 38 by the end of the season. Moving things to the women's side, Jamesha Ford of South Carolina, 22-22 in the 200-meter dash. I've said her name so many times this season, and I think I'm going to continue to say it. She's having a phenomenal freshman year. She is ranked top three in both the top five in both the 200 and 400. More of a 200-meter runner now in college, and I think it'll stay that way under Coach Tim Hall. But she's doing a phenomenal job. 22 in the 200. And I was a little disappointed not to see South Carolina at the Penn Relays. They've kind of been a mainstay there, even when things began to change with a lot of colleges not necessarily going. And that kind of changed a little bit this year. There were a lot of really good top tier programs that competed this year. And I would have loved to have seen South Carolina maybe next year, hopefully, and we'll see them. But also highlight Mackenzie Long of Ole Miss, who ran the exact same time, just a slight wind aided. And we know that Mackenzie Long has already beaten Ford this season. So I think we're looking at our top two, along with Jacia Sears and Brianna Liston. But Jacia Sears and Brianna Liston have not run 22 too. But here's the fun part. We're going to see all four of those ladies in a couple weeks at the SEC championships. And man, that is going to be a barn burner because it's going to look like in order to make the finals, you need to run sub 23, maybe even sub 22.8 or 22.7. It's going to be an all 22 final, which is going to be great. And the last big highlight from the sprints on the women's side would be the Tennessee 4x1. We saw them make a mistake at the Florida University of Florida, the Tom Jones Memorial. The anchor leg got out a little too quick, which caused them to lose ground and not really perform at the level that they're capable of. And I said this at the beginning of the season. I think they're the best quartet, and they proved it. 42.52. That's clearly a school record, way below the 43 mark, and 42.52 puts them in the all-time category. At one point in time, the NCAA record was 42.5, and it sat there for years. And even the Moon Elite LSU teams couldn't beat their original school record because they ran 42.55. But to see this Tennessee team 42.52 at this point in the season, they're the clear favorites in the 4x1. But they've already made mistakes before, so they have to just simply be solid, get that baton around. Now, moving to our second link, we'll talk about the jumps, and there were some big jump marks. The first on the men's side, we'll see from Caleb Snowden of Arkansas Pine Bluff. I still think Romaine Beckford is the man to beat, but Caleb Snowden has been mentioned here multiple times, and he's been the top guy for a good portion of this season. And he again further cemented his stranglehold on the number one ranking with a 7 feet 5 1/4 jump or 2.27 meters. Caleb Snowden just consistently performs at a high level. I want to see him really give Romaine Beckford of Arkansas a run for his money. Wayne Pennick of Arkansas became our first 27-foot jumper outdoors, 27.1, 8.25 meters. I still think he's going to give us a 28 this year. I think that he's our best bet for that from a collegiate athlete. And I feel like he's starting off the outdoor season just a tad bit slow because this is a little late in the season to start off. Well, that's for obvious reasons. He's expecting to be on Team Jamaica come the Olympic trials. But 27-1, and then we're heading to the SEC championships where he'll get a chance to go up against Malcolm Clemens of Florida again, who he did defeat this weekend at at LSU. We're looking forward to another great matchup between those two. On the women's side, you have Chloe Timberg of Rutgers, who I saw in person. And yes, she is physically as impressive as the pictures show. She is a very stout, muscularly built pole vaulter. And she tied Hannah Mole's NCAA lead in the pole vault, 15 feet 1 or 4.60 meters. And she, I think, is ready to go over 4.6. Watching her three attempts, her third attempt was not her best. Her second attempt was her best. And we actually, in the audience, and I was on the other side, closer to the finish line, and I noticed, I said, on her second attempt, that was her best attempt at possibly going over 4.65 meters. And I really think that at some point this season she will surpass it. So now we're no longer worried about a 15-foot jumper. We have two of them. So it's going to be who wants it more, who's able to be more consistent at the championship meet between Chloe Timberg and Hannah Mole of Washington, who I was shocked that wasn't here because the Washington women were here, the distance runners for the most part, and they had a pretty solid meet. And then the other major jump performance came from Akeelia Smith of Texas. So good to hear her name. Things did not go the way she wanted at the end of the indoor season, but outdoor we're getting things started with a bang. 23 feet 3.5 inches, 7.10 meters in the long jump. This is again a very talented jumper, and she proved it this weekend. What a mark! 23.3 to debut, and we have to give the Texas program a lot of credit because they're really just pushing on a lot of great jumpers. I mean, they had Tara Davis, and now here we are with Akeelia Smith. Woo, what a mark. 7.10 meters in the long jump. At this point, she's definitely vying for an Olympic spot for Team Jamaica. And then moving to our third leg, it is just simply a Penn Relays recap because that was such a phenomenal weekend for me. Before I go into I have a montage of videos of things that I've saw, and I'll do another video of just full recollection of the Penn Relays. I want to talk about the collegiate record that I did see in person, and that came from the 4x mile from Villanova. That was a fantastic race. Granted, the 4 by mile requires a lot of attention, a lot of focus from the audience because it is a very long event. I mean, you're talking about four individuals competing in the mile, which is not a super fast event, but it is such a technical tactician style race that you have to look at the strategy of each runner and how the coach puts the relay together. And for a long while in that race, especially in the anchor leg, I thought, okay, the Virginia runner, has no problem with leading. But I wonder how well he can lead because Villanova is literally sitting on his heels, and it's like intentional that I know I can outkick you. And that's what happened. In the end, he outkicked him. And we saw three phenomenal relays from Villanova, Virginia, and I want to say, it's escaping me, but those two schools in particular all went under 16 minutes. We had never had that for a collegiate team, but I don't think they go under 60. They went way under 16 minutes, 15:51. A new NCAA record. Kudos to Villanova. What a phenomenal performance. In the men's 4x4, you'll see a picture of them, but Texas A&M in the 4x4, and I looked at Arizona State. They did not look the same way that they did indoors. The Arizona State looked a little off, and Texas A&M looked a little on. I think this will be a different story in the 4x4 come outdoors. And this is where their anchor, Ahmad Robinson, really shines. He's a phenomenal relay runner. And he did play a little bit on the anchor, and I think he played up to the crowd because I think he knew no matter who is on the anchor leg against me, I can outkick you and I can be sort of the star of the show. And he was that. He very much was that because it looked for a moment that uh, Arizona State or a number of teams that was literally nipping at their heels was going to catch him, and he refused because that last 100 meters he just really put on a show, and we've seen him do that before when he was at Stephen F. Austin. Remember, he wore that incredible anchor leg, but now at Texas A&M he's just on a different level. He looks outstanding, and I think they're going to be hard to beat come championship time. And they even run faster than what they ran at the Penn Relays, which tells me they're a sub 3 minute team just waiting to happen. Sean Maswaganye of Houston did not have the best weekend. Just didn't. And he was kind of the expected star of the meet. I mean, when he shows up, he's an imposing, very tall, about 6'2", 6'3" sprinter, long, lanky. And I just thought, oh, he's going to dominate the 100. He didn't dominate the 100. He lost the 100 to his teammate, Louis Hinchcliffe. And he got beat in anchor leg in the 4x1. He got the baton, and we thought, oh, it's over with for South Florida. And South Florida said no. And the same could be said in the 4x2 because South Florida said no in that as well. He couldn't catch them. So he walked away with 3 silvers this weekend. And although that's no slouching performance, it's just this is someone who we see as a sub 10 runner. This is someone we see as a lightning fast anchor. You're going to see a clip of him where he does anchor in the prelims and takes them to the front, but he's not able to do that in the finals. And unfortunately, that meant Houston's win streak ended. They have dominated the 4x1 since 2019. They've won 2019, and obviously 2020 and 2021, there were no Penn Relays. But they did win in 2022, 2023. And they were looking for 4 in a row. And no dice. Little disappointing on that anchor leg. I thought he was going to close ranks. On the women's side, Ohio State really kind of cemented themselves, and they've done that over the past couple of years from Karen Dennis now to the coaching staff, which does include Joe Brown. They've kind of been the best Midwest sprint program, and I think that is even kind of limiting them. They've been one of the best sprint and hurdle programs in the nation. They remind me of the way things were for the Big Ten back in the early 2000s, late 90s. Like there was Indiana and Illinois who were very good at producing sprinters, but Illinois was specifically good at producing a bevy of hurlers. There was a good hurler at Indiana named Daniel Carruthers, but Illinois had a boatload of great hurlers and sprinters, and that's kind of who they remind me of, just on an even greater level because they don't shy away from the big time competition during the regular season. And in that 4x1, you'll see Texas A&M made a really big mistake. The anchor got out way too early because they were clearly winning that race. And you saw Ohio State cross the finish line first, and I believe that's their first pinwheel for the women in the 4x1 ever. That was huge. Moving to the 4x4 on the women's side, Texas A&M and Houston did battle, and it's clear that right now the 400-meter strength is not at the University of Texas. It's between their rivals, Texas A&M and Houston. I don't know if we call Houston a rival because for a long time they were the small school in not in size, but their spacing in the big conferences. It was Texas A&M, Baylor, Texas Tech. They were all in the Big 12 before the conference alignment, and now you have Houston in the Big 12, and they have capitalized on being a major conference school. They were winners here in the 4x4. They have really proven and really developed their 400-meter program. They were really good with the men. Now they have shifted to having a really great women's program. And also highlight to Harvard's DMR and Maya Ramsden of Harvard, our leader in the 1500, our NCAA champion in the mile, defending champion in the 1500, anchored the heck out of that DMR, setting a record. And that's the first win for Harvard ever, since not ever, but since the 1930s. So you're talking almost 90 years. So kudos to them. Excellent anchor by her. She ran a very tactically smart race. Um, when it was time to really gun it, she just was the superior runner. I think at this point, although we know that there is some really good competition in the DMR and in the 1500, I think it's fair to say that her being the favorite, especially over the past couple years, has been completely well earned because you had Kimberly May on the anchor, and Kimberly May and I'm talking about for Providence, the competitor. She ran a 423 anchor, but Ramsden ran a smart 421 anchor. So it's just who would have thought? And I'm seeing here in my notes since 1936. I mean, my goodness, what a performance for Harvard. And that was a great run by Maya Ramsden. And now moving to the montage. Please enjoy the montage of this really, really great competition known as the Penn Relays. And now, welcome back to the anchor leg discussion where we're going to talk about the team rankings. Yes, now we can talk about them. It's the end of April. Next time we speak on a recap, it'll be the beginning of May. And that's where things start to really heat up. But I think the team title picture has given us a glimpse. I think on the men's side, Texas A&M and Florida look really strong. Florida looks particularly deep in the 400 again. And, curious to see what they do come SEC championship. I think there's a chance that we'll possibly see three sub 45 runners from Florida again. And I think their 4x4 is going to be at a different level again. Wanya McCoy, Robert Gregory is shaping into, pretty solid runners. Still waiting to see what Joshua Brockman is going to do. I don't know if he's injured, but he's not really been what I think they've expected as a hurdler. Their jumpers look pretty solid. They're getting some pretty solid marks under their throwers, specifically Kai Chang. But I think it is going to be hard to defeat Texas A&M. This is one of Pat Henry's best teams. They are very loaded all over the track. I think their only area where they just are not as deep as the short sprints. They are deep in the 400. They are deep in the 800. They have a great group of hurdlers. They have a great group of jumpers. They have a great group of distance runners. Not just the 800 guys, but middle distance is a solid position for them. They've got some depth in the throws. I think this is going to be a pretty difficult team to defeat. Texas A&M is very solid. I still think Texas Tech is going to be, have something to say about it come championship time. It's just hard to say where, give them a number one ranking when we've not really seen anything. On the women's side, it's LSU and Arkansas, and I think right now I would give the lean actually to LSU, not Arkansas. LSU has serious depth in the 100, and I mean serious depth. You're talking about a team that may actually have three women that may be able to go sub 11. So not just Brianna Liston. There's Thelma Davies. There's a host of really good sprinters there at LSU. No shock, it's LSU. Let's put that into perspective. But not just them. They're deep in the hurdles, both high and low hurdles. Great relays. really good jumpers. They have the middle distance runners, specifically Michaela Rose in the 800. They have great throwers on both men and women's side. So this is going to be a really tough LSU team to defeat because from Arkansas, what I'm seeing as their strength is primarily in their 400 runners and a few of their hurdlers. They do have a pretty decent 4x1. Of course, I think in the 4x4, they're just going to be superior. But we can't ignore this weekend that we saw LSU run a 3:26.5. We saw that. That was a great mark. And they're going to be in it to win it against Arkansas. This is, I think, their best team in a while since their last championship. And hats off to Dennis Shaver, really putting together a pretty solid team. Um, we just need to see a little more out of Arkansas's distance runners. And I'm still waiting to see more out of their jumpers outside of Rachel Glenn, who looks really solid. They do have Glenn in the 400 hurdles, who was a great low hurdler when she was at Wilson Long Beach. And things are finally moving in the direction that she wants to in that. But I think LSU right now is slight edge over Arkansas. But more to come on that team title battle. We'll be talking about it weekly from here on out and seeing where teams are. And thank you all for listening, constantly following, and providing feedback. I really do want the channel to grow. So please like, subscribe, share, and comment as frequent. I will try to comment as often. And to, one of my regular followers, all in the game, to answer your question about the World Relays, they actually can. So I have to correct myself. They can compete in the World Relays and come back. They just, cannot, unless they commit themselves to being fully professional. If it's just an NIL deal, obviously they can still compete. So, yes, we may see Godson Ojani Brume of LSU run for Nigeria and then come back and run again for LSU. And that's hoping because I do think LSU is going to run sub 38 this year. But that is our recap. I'll be seeing you next. We will be doing a video recapping the end of May, but also talking about the state of track and field in college, and not just in college, but in general, because of some major changes that have happened. But thank you again. See you next time.